Hello, well, bam, 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 bam. Hello and welcome to part three of the sea power behind the Ring of Iron slash Stone, and this is talking about James of St George. Yes, I thought I'd get the engineer involved. No, I like James of St George. He is cool. He's also a lot of fun because we know so little about him, but he obviously does so much. And when I say so much, I mean pick a great castle in Western Europe. The odds are it was either influenced by him or built by him. And he had good bones. We fairly sure, and I say fairly sure, we're as sure as we can be with the joy of the Middle Ages, that his father was Jean Cotterell, who is the person who, of course, has built this beautiful cathedral. And various castles as well. This is not the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Lausanne, which is, of course, in the canton of Vaud in Switzerland. And they are from the Savoy area in the Savoy nation. So they're part of Switzerland, northern Italy, southern France sort of area is where we're talking about. They do a lot of construction there. And that's actually where Edward apparently meets her and meets James St George. But the thing is, John Cotterell is either his father or the master who he apprentices under. We're fairly sure he's his father. We know he does work under other masters as well, but he spends most of his time and refers to Jean Cotterell, and they do seem to have worked together, and they share surnames and all sorts of things that seem to come in. So that's why we're going with this is his father. But I will tell you now, the books on this are sufficiently complicated that I'm not sure even if the authors understood them. And that's the English language ones. I have a feeling those are English language versions of translations. So there might be phraseology being lost in the translation. But I would love to do some time in Switzerland doing some research looking at this. And there is a reason I picked Switzerland. Anyway, he's classified by some, including Mark Morris, as the greatest architect of the European Middle Ages. I would say one thing. He definitely did study his Vitruvius, which is the books of architecture left behind by the Romans. So that might well be a factor in it, but that's not a bad factor. Oh, my architect is so good because he actually paid attention in class and he's a master mason and actually knows what he's talking about. Oh, that's terrible. I must hold this against him. It's not a line which any king wanting castles built would ever have been known to say. He's pretty much unknown, though. We don't know whose mother is. We know probably Edward I met him on his return from Crusade in 1273. But he could also have been connected with his mum, with Edward I's mum. Of course. Her relatives were known as the Savoyards, her retainers who came from. A lot of them did have links in the Savoy area. We even base our assumption that his wife, which we know he had, died before him because she doesn't get a pension after he's... We can't find records of her receiving a pension after he died. there is also the fact that his father might be John or Jean Catterall, because in some places he's listed as Jean was a master mason. And we're basically combining the two together because, and here's the thing, and when I first saw this listed, I went and looked it up, and it's an interesting time. It's a book published in 1985 by A.J. Taylor called Studies in Castle and Castle Building, published by the Hambledon Press. And basically, we're presuming John and Jean Catterall are the same person, or Cotterill, rather than brothers, because of the year of death and their architectural style. They could also have been brothers, and one was his dad and one was the master he studied under. We honestly don't know much. So let's get in with what we do know. Well, we know he built a fair number of castles before he even reached Wales, including the fact that when King of England, when Edward comes through in 1273, he finds that his great-nephew, Philip I, the Count of Savoy, I know, in 1273 he already has a great-nephew, thanks to older sisters. And he's going there because of paying homage, i.e. Philip needs to pay homage to Edward. So Edward's going, as he's passing him, saying, why aren't you coming to see me when I get back home? Why don't I come see you? Stay with you for a bit. You pay homage to me there and we're done. Basically, I come see my nephew. And Philip is at the point constructing about 4 castles at the same time. I think it's St. Georges d'Esprache, La Côte Saint-André, Voron, and Saint Laurent du Pont. And in charge, running them all, or at least heavily involved in running them, we're not quite sure again, is James St. George. And Edward goes, this is interesting. This is good work. And possibly meets him. Doesn't actually take him straight though to Wales, because also he doesn't have any operations going on. This is 72, 73, possibly even as late as 1274. He's going, it's sort of, the contact's being made. And James St. George will turn up in England, for Wales, in 1278. First of all, as the Ad Ordinem Opera Castorum Ibidem, which basically means the person coordinating the building. Now, which is great, but after a while Edward gets fed up with the pace of other people's construction, and he decides that Magistro Jacob de Santo Georgia will become Magistro Operarium Regis in Wallia. Regis in Wallia. Which basically means that he is the master of construction in all Wales, is the overall master, and drawing a wage of 3 shillings a day, and has full control of Conwy, Carnarvon, Harlech, and Beaumaris, or eventually Beaumaris and other things, in complete authority, direct from the king for their construction. This is the point at which, therefore, that James of St. George, becomes really powerful. However, please note again that name. We call him Master James of St. George. In French, it's Maître Jacques de St. George. In Latin, Magistro Jacobo de Sancto Giorgio. This can cause fun in different documents. In 1290, James of St. George is actually appointed the constable as well of Harlech Castle, succeeding Jean de Beauvois. He holds his position till 1293. Now, constable of the castle is basically the king's representative in the castle. So he's not just an engineer or a master mason. He's also considered to be quite capable at fighting his castles, which might explain another reason why Edward is so happy to listen to his advice on these things. He also ends up when Linlithgow and Stirling, after Scotland, the issues in Scotland come about, and we know he worked at Stirling during the siege of 1304. Basically, Edward has to go to fight in Scotland, and in 1298, he's called James of St. George is called to come help him deal with the situation in Scotland. He needs his castle builder. He needs his trusted castle man to fortify these places. The thing is, St. George is critical the whole way through these operations, because the castles are the engines of deterrence, of occupation. They're dependent upon water to secure them and supply them, access to the sea. But if the castle isn't strong enough to survive until those reinforcements arrive, there's no point in them. So this is why the castles have to be as strong as they are, and this is why Edward has called in a master mason, or a master architect. Because he needs the castles not to follow fashion. He needs them to be as strong as they possibly can be, to make best use of the ground. So, this picture is not the one I took when I visited Beaumaris, because the one I took didn't turn out as nicely as this one, so I'm saying it is from Wikipedia. But it's a highly idealised picture. But if you ever go to Beaumaris, there's lots of different things inside the castle for how they built the castle, the tools and the various things put out. And it's rather interesting to look at and think about. What's also interesting is when you go through the list of castles. And you go, right then, which one was James St. George in charge of? Well, if we go back to the list at the beginning. Flint. Yes. He's in charge of. And Hawarden and Rodden, he works on as well. And basically he's coordinating those three, not Aberystwyth or Bullif. Then he gets Harlech, Carnarvon, and Conwy, and finally he gets Beaumaris. So Denby, I wouldn't be surprised if he has some involvement in, because that's right in his area. But you also realise there is a limitation to what one person can oversee and run. Even if you have good deputies and good assistants, which he does seem to have done, there is a limitation. And I think that's why Aberystwyth and Bullif are quite so not part of his area. Although, again, there are rumours that he comes and visits them and gives them ideas. But, as said, he starts off as ad ordinem opera castrum ibidem. And that he's put in charge of Flint. Definitely. Rhuddlan. And, as said, Flint and Rhuddlan and... Oh, my brain is dying of old age. Get my list up again. Flint, Rhuddlan, and Hwarden. Those are his real three. Flint is what he's primarily responsible for, and then he goes to Rhuddlan, but he does keep going back to Hwarden, and they are secured. There are also three of the first ones, which, if you notice when you'll notice when we're talking about them and when we're mentioning the wars earlier, are three of the ones which are built quickest. Which, again, I'm sure Edward didn't notice and think, this guy is good. Worth the money. Edward was obsessed with speed. So what have we got coming out? We've got Robert Calder on the 13th of July. More of these are going to be announced. What I will do is I'll fill these in while I'm away on my research trip. A large chunk of them, and I will post it to YouTube, and I will post it to Patreon and Discord, so everyone will find out what they are. Thank you again to everyone who's decided to join the channel for those lovely emojis. Thank you to everyone who's decided to subscribe to the channel and is getting updates when I send out videos. Thank you to everyone who's decided to press the little bell down there so they get an alert when I do a live. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's on Patreon, because you really do make my research possible. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing this week while these are live without the support of Patreon. And more details on that will probably be coming out in time. And I hope you're having good fun. And thank you to everyone having the chats on Discord. They're wonderful. They're really, really cool. Thank you. All right.